Weekly Manga Recap time. I'm Nick. You're alongside Chris. How you doing, man?
I wasn't used to that kind of opening night. Nothing.
Oh no, no, oh no! I've ruined the structure of everything. I'm forcing tired Chris
We
apparently
had
to
a.
think on his toes.
That's a different kind of Chris. I wasn't used to that kind of. The flow was just completely interrupted, so I didn't really know what to do there.
Oh no, I've thrown you off your guard.
I'm already in like a weird kind of state, Nick. There's
Hmm.
something currently on my mind, and I don't know how to process it quite yet. You know the rapper Macklemore?
Yes.
All right. Well, he just put out a new single for a song called "Dance Off," featuring
Okay.
Idris Elba. Featuring Idris Elba. Like
Really?
he is the chorus of the song. I'm
Really?
going to play a couple seconds here for
So
the
that YouTube
audience
won't,
can hear
so
it.
that YouTube won't take us off, right?
Literally, he's like the first 5 seconds is you can listen
I
to it.
challenge you to a dance off. Hands off, no trash talk, no backwalk. On the black top.
It's so confusing because I hate it, and at the same time, like it's so stupid. I know I just don't know how to process it. My brain has been trying to figure it all day. I actually got fired from work because I couldn't concentrate on it at all. It was like people were like, "I need help," and I was like, "I can't." Idris Elba's in a Macklemore song. Are you okay with this? And they're like, "I I don't know. I'll process it later, but I need to get this done first." And I was like, "Oh, you
Oh
and
well,
your
it's great that you can prioritize that
yeah,
way.
you simple fools managing to do your work at home."
Idris Elba is awesome. He might not ever be James Bond because apparently the author of James Bond is racist, but he is amazing.
Well, I found it funny. My brother was at the gym, and they have Good Morning America often on at the gym when he's there.
Hmm.
And I guess they had something that was like, "Stay tuned for something regarding the next James Bond." And my brother saw just a black guy dancing. He's like, "Oh my god, there's just Alpha got picked to be the next James Bond." Until like a couple seconds afterwards, where he's like, "Oh wait, that was just Michael Strahan dancing in the next segment in a preview."
It's a black guy in a suit. James Bond is black now.
They're like, "They got it. It's James Bond and Alpha."
He's got a much bigger gap in his teeth than I remember. And Jesus Christ, he's tall.
Yeah.
Oh God. But anyhow, we got some manga to talk about today. I think that I have my own thing I wanted to talk about, but
Go
I've
for it.
completely forgotten what it was. So don't worry about it. Maybe it'll come up at some point later. It's not like we limit our tangents to just the first 5 minutes of the show.
Yeah, and
If it comes
there's
up,
no
yeah.
jelly beans or anything at stake this week. So
Mm-hmm. Right. We don't have a structure to stick to this time. We our recommendation, Pokemon Adventure, we are still working on it, and we'll have that within the next couple of weeks. But we do have a new manga to talk about this week because the latest Jumpstart series started up. That will come fairly late in our recap because of our tradition of going alphabetically, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Judging by what Chris put in the poll, I think that I know what he is going to say about it.
I couldn't remember what his fucking name was. I also put One Piece in the poll, even though it's not in this week, and somehow it still got two
One Piece
votes.
is still good. But yeah, let's get started off as we usually do with some Black Clover, chapter or page 61. That still bothers me. It's been over a year since that series started, like a year and a quarter basically now, and it still bothers me whenever that comes up.
It's very confusing.
It's so
It
wrong.
makes sense because other series do this sort of thing, like
Mm-hmm.
Down 61 or whatever with Ice Shield. It's just
Mm-hmm.
weird to me because the way we started with, all right, then Page. Yeah, Page. Page 61.
Page 61 of Black Clover, starting on page 198 of Shonen Jump. Last time, it's called Temple Battle Royal, the chapter is, by the way. Last time, the Black Bulls were basically roped into competing against various mages in the Water Temple in a all-out battle royal, 9 versus 9, with all the members of the guild, except for Captain Yami, having to participate. They're scattered across this temple, and immediately many of them were set upon by mages, and then Luck and Asta and Magna and Gauche immediately attacked their opponents, and it's confirmed at the start of this chapter that they won very, very easily. Like, those attacks that we saw at the end of the last chapter, yes, that finished them off. That's it. And basically, yeah, as Yami pointed out the last time, yeah, they're much stronger than their ranks would indicate. And they have this very handy counter along with all of the various watery screens that they have to watch the fight. So it blinks to 9 versus 5. The Black Bulls take an early lead. And I like how Cthulhu-looking guy that Asta beat is like, no, my mollusk magic should turn aside any physical attack. And Asta's like, well, my sword's anti-magic. He's like explaining how his powers work as the guy falls unconscious. There were actually like at least 3 or 4 moments in this chapter that I did think were really funny. That were very effective. So, but all of the guys who have won are all moving on to try and take on stronger opponents, and the head priest is like, oh, well, the remaining priests aren't going to be so easy to defeat, especially the 3 great priests, because they're at an even higher level than the rest of them. Finral is still hiding from the person that he has been put up against, which is a Hammerhead priest, and he is actually trying to just use his spatial magic to run away. Just leave the battlefield entirely, because I guess he's been...
Can't pick up chicks getting eaten by fish and shit.
Just gonna run away. So observing this, the high priest, announces to him, you can't actually leave until the game is completely finished. Oh, and if you don't fight, so then I'm just gonna, use some of my nuisance spells on you. And he conjures this giant fish, which lunges out and immediately swallows Finral, and then his spatial magic appears and he reappears outside of its mouth, running away. I didn't think that was a really
covered in saliva too.
Yeah, because it actually, he was in its mouth, and then suddenly this portal appears, and he's just. I like the visual. It's good. Then we cut to Charmy, who has found the food, because of course she has. That's her gimmick. She likes food.
I guess she has lamb slaves, too.
Yeah. She's, I guess, used her cotton magic in order to have them prepare the food. So I guess she found a bunch of fish and is just cooking it instead of fighting. She moved very quickly, seemingly. And she says, the entire ecosystem is mine. This girl is horrifyingly dangerous. Like, entire structures would probably collapse around her if she were allowed to have her way.
She has a One Piece left, too.
Yeah.
Wahaha.
Well, yeah, I think that I was confused at an earlier point because she was just going, la. Apparently that's her thing. She just goes la, and that's included in her laugh, too. A dolphin priest finds her, and Charmy is like, oh, well, if you want to take me on, then, bring it. And the dolphin uses song magic, and Charmy hears it, and she immediately falls on her face asleep.
Okay, it took me a while to figure out if this thing had flipper hands or not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a darkness.
Very, very long sleeves covering the hands. But I did think it was really funny because Charmy, takes this like kung fu fighting stance. She's like freaking Bruce Lee because she goes, putting the hand down, making the beckoning motion while she's maintaining a fighting stance, and she's got this really determined look on her face up until she just falls flat on her face, and then apparently rolls over onto her back to keep on sleeping.
Yeah, if you just ate, you don't want to sleep on a full belly. Just gonna give you indigestion.
Mm-hmm. That always sucks. So yeah, the priests actually get a takedown early on as well. Charmy was worthless. Good to know. But I guess that's just her usual thing. Unless she is provoked properly, then she's kind of useless. But if she is provoked properly, she's one of the strongest mages they have, it seems like. So, yeah, good stuff. Asta is taking on more nuisance spells, but with his new ability to sense ki that he got from Yami, he senses that somebody is present, and he comes across a swordfish priest who has just dispatched this very, very large nuisance fish creature. He's going to complain to himself because Grandpa keeps on having them attack the priests as well as the Black Bulls to keep it fair. And so Swordfish guy introduces himself as Kiato, and he opens up by saying, "Oh, I heard you have a weird sword that cancels out magic." And it's like, "How'd you know that?" "Well, never mind. Check out this dance." And he immediately just starts dancing while waving his swords around. And then he starts talking about his dream. He's like, "I want to be a dancer who captivates the entire kingdom. Although people from the Underwater Temple can go to the kingdom's beaches, we can't go to the capital. It's the rules. But if we win this fight," Grandpa said, oh, by the way, the High Priest is my grandpa. "He said we could use the High Priest's authority to go up on land." For these 2 pages, I really liked this guy. I thought that he was actually really cool. And I was like, I want Dancing Swordfish Guy to be the main character now. And then it turns out he's just a guy wearing a mask, and he's got, very, shonen character face. And I was like, oh, don't like him nearly as much now.
I wonder if it's a direct translation for his name, because I notice if you just switch the I and the A around, this character's name becomes the nickname that a certain letterer for World Trigger and Black Clover uses. Just noticing it's there. Seems a little suspect. Actually, in Japanese, his name is the Brooklyn Brawler.
It's like, he just got fired. He had to do something.
The Brooklyn Brawler.
Brooklyn Brawler. God, that'd be a really awful name to do in Japanese. Yeah. Anyhow, so Kiato and Asta immediately start fighting. They're clashing swords against one another. Kiato is very, very quick, and his mask comes off at some point. It just kind of disappears between panels. So I don't know if he banishes it with magic or if it just falls off.
I think because he uses his maybe not. I thought for a moment I saw it. He does use his actual swordfish nose as a sword at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought maybe Asta counter attack that sword, and then just the force would pull it off his face. It's maybe what happens because his hands are back, but yeah, it just pops off.
Yeah, I mean, if you go from one panel to the next, it's securely on in one panel, and then the next it's just gone completely. Dolphin Priest then appears before Noelle, and Noelle does her whole, "Oh, I'm a royal, I'm super strong. Oh, Jesus Christ, I can't do anything," privately to herself. And the Dolphin Priest removes her mask to reveal that it's Kahono. Kahono. There we go. The girl who met with Noelle and Asta on the beach when she was mastering her Sea Dragon's lair. And that's the end of the chapter. The 2 of them reunited after, of course, Kahono had alluded to the possibility that this would probably happen. This is I think, going to be interesting because it's the character that Noelle learned a lot about control from, but she doesn't know any spells aside from the one, seemingly. But one way or the other, it's nice to know that she's going to get her own little spotlight within all these battles and stuff, because she does still feel like a neglected character in this series, despite being the second most important character in it.
They said I'm presuming these are 2 of the people he listed as being the second level priest. I forget what the title he gives them is, but he mentioned there were 3 of them, so I'm assuming these are 2 of them. And then I guess one other character within this group might get a larger battle, or at least beat someone more significant than I guess the small fries everyone else is kind of going up against.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only other person they really focused on was Finral. So maybe it'll be him, although I wouldn't be shocked if it's here's Gray doing something, because we haven't even actually seen him in his true form yet, I don't believe. So
Oh, maybe the two young ones are actually the strong, are actually not very strong. Uh, Kai, Kaito, Kyoto, and the
Kono.
well, I keep on wanting to say like Kohana
It's Kono.
because I know
Okay.
my brain
I
wants to
was like,
say
I'm looking at it. If you're questioning me, I
no,
think
no,
I can still read.
it is Kahono, but my brain wants to say Kohana,
Kono Hanamaru.
or yeah, or Konoha, or well, I guess that's it. Yeah.
I guess that's where it stops.
Uh, Mostly like this chapter, honestly. There were several moments that actually did make me laugh when I was reading it the first time through. So good jokes amidst the action. I'm glad that we have another opponent for Essa to fight. I was legit though disappointed when they went because I was like, can you imagine like if like this weird dancing swordfish guy joined the Black Bulls or something like that? Just a dancing swordfish guy. That's such a weird concept that it's like, oh, I could totally be into that. And then his mask comes out. I was like, oh, it's just a dude then.
You're just
He just
You're
looks
just a
after.
person.
Once you start off with, here's this swordfish who has two other swords and also uses his nose as a sword, and then you go to, well, he's a normal shonen-looking guy, and it's like, immediately, I'm much less interested in the design now. There is no way that that could possibly measure up to dancing swordfish guy. Now it's just dancing guy who wears a swordfish mask during his introduction.
Maybe he still has flippers. Or a floral.
He just like, actually, this is my human mask that I wear over my other swordfish.
My other swordfish mask. I just have
Oh
a
my
very
god,
small nose.
how is the nose hiding under that thing?
Painfully.
Magic.
That's my magic. No shrinking magic.
Yay.
No, excuse me. Owen Wilson needs me. He flies off.
Oh god. Random pot show.
Take that, Owen Wilson. You've had it good for too long. No notable movies since, like, Zoolander.
I was just in Zoolander too. No notable movies
Yes.
since.
I don't stand corrected.
Let's move on to Bleach. 673, Father. We open up with the battle with Gerard as Rukia and Renji reappear on the scene. Rukia randomly riding on Renji's back for some reason. I don't really get that. Can't they all fly? Well, no, they can't do that. They established that they can't form their, like, jumpy structure things. So I guess that does make sense. Never mind. It's just a weird panel to open things up with because Renji is, doing this action pose and Rukia is awkwardly holding onto his shoulders, but it's a small panel and she's got that kind of comedic style face where there's very little detail and it's just her eyes kind of going. It's like a giant is destroying everyone. Is this the right time to joke around? Well, apparently.
She seems really small, too. I don't know why.
Well, she is very small. There have been times, I'm pretty sure, where Rukia has been literally barely up to Renji's waist.
Kinky.
And, so Hitsugaya immediately shouts over to them and warns them, you guys should be careful. This is, what's happened to our enemy while you've been gone. And Renji's like, who the hell is that? Because Hitsugaya is still in his older Bishi form. And Rukia says, can't you tell by his voice? It's probably Captain Hitsugaya's older brother. And Renji's like, oh, nice to meet you. And Hitsugaya just rolls with it instead of correcting them. He's like, yes, it's nice to meet you too. And Byakuya's got this expression, like nonplussed expression on his face while he's thinking, oh, he's just playing along, okay. And it's like, shouldn't they be a little bit more concerned about this? Because, Giant killing everyone?
Nah, I mean, they're like, look, eventually we'll get him.
It's okay. We'll stay here and eat this bread, Ichigo. Okay, it was weird since we were... Anyhow, at that moment, Renji and Rukia, and also Ishida, who we very, very, very quickly and briefly cut away to, all notice something. And so they look towards the horizon and they all go, Ichigo! From what happens later in the chapter, I guess they're sensing his surging Reiatsu, because Yuhabak observes that he's like surrounded by his spirit pressure and is ready to strike him. So I guess that as he's walking to confront Yubak, he's kind of just like while he's walking very calmly forward. That's the best I can guess.
He's using hockey.
Essentially, yes. Yubak observes this, and he says, "You've grown strong. Ah, no, that is the power you are supposed to have." And he plays up like, "Oh, I wonder what you're going to do, which direction you'll attack me from." And Ichigo says, "I know that you can see how I'll attack you." And Yubak says, "I won't use my power. I want to enjoy this long-awaited conversation with my son." Like, so I guess he can just kind of turn off the "I see all" thing.
Yeah, I guess it's like any power. You have to consciously choose to use it, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's... I don't know, it's like... So has he just deliberately, like, been closing his eyes to this moment? This doesn't seem wise. You know?
No,
Like,
but he's a bad guy. He needs to be cocky and
he needs to be
arrogant.
cocky and arrogant. It just seems... It's just unwise, you know? I'm starting to remake the world in my image for my people and so on and so forth. But I really want to talk to this guy that I consider a son for reasons that have yet to be explained. So I will risk all of that by just kind of closing my eyes to the possibilities for that one moment of history, I guess.
I mean, he's called the Almighty, Nick, not the All-Smarty. It's kind of understandable that he doesn't think these things through so much.
Yeah. So, Yubaka says, you know, I've been wanting to have this conversation with my son, and Ichigo says, "That's not true, that's impossible. Search your feelings, you know it to be true. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father, blah, 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 blah."
Shockingly, no one's
No
hands been
hands
cut
cut
off yet.
yeah.
And for Bleach,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
But Yubak says, like, you know, who do you think Ishin Kurosaki, you know, really is? He was just a stand-in, and you already know what the true origin of your power is. And Ichigo just replies with, "So what?" Which, good response. And he says, you know, "You're not my father. You killed one of my parents." So, very clear and deliberate, very Jesus kind of thing going on here, because it's basically kind of implying that it's almost like that's very like Joseph and Mary kind of thing, isn't it?
What is?
Well, because Yubak is saying, like, you know, Ishin's not your real father. You know, he was just a surrogate, a stand-in for me, because I am your true father, because I gifted you with all this power. So he's basically like, I'm God, you're Jesus, kind of thing. That's just the impression that I get.
I mean, somewhat. I'm just trying to think if there's a moment in the Bible. Because, I mean,
obviously,
Jesus
God
never
was
even
like,
acknowledges really Joseph as his father. He's always kind of like,
no.
I mean, you're this physical thing that
right.
didn't actually do anything. I don't know why I consider you my father. You know what? If the Bible were written today, Mary
You're
would
not
have
my
been
real dad.
Mary would have been a single independent woman to prove that she can do it on her own. Also, there'd be a lot less rape. But I can't. One thing at a time. Current day Bible, single mom.
She would have consented before being immaculately impregnated.
Yeah, before God was just like, "You're perfect." She's like, "I don't get a say in this. I was going to be a dancer."
Oh god. So Geobuck says in response to, "Oh yeah, I killed your mom. Don't be such a crybaby," which is such a dick line. And Ichigo immediately draws his sword and attacks. He goes for Getsuga Tensho right off the bat, which honestly kind of surprised me a little bit, because, you know, his sword is very different. His Quincy powers have apparently awakened. I know he's still a Soul Reaper, but I'm a little bit surprised that he's got the same basic technique that he's relied on all this time. Um, and it's I mean, not just in that he calls it Getsuga Tensho, but he swings his sword. The giant wave of white energy comes out. It's basically the exact same as it was before. Is what kind of surprised me. The the new form of his powers hasn't actually affected his actual fighting that we've seen yet.
Although it's white, which is actually different, isn't it?
When he has the Shikai, it's always been white. When he uses it in Bankai, it's been black.
I see.
And immediately the wave of energy is cut off by this massive black energy that surrounds Yubak, and after apparently just completely suppressing it, it then tries to smash into Ichigo, but Orihime shields him from it. Very weird kind of sequence, because for the entire rest of the chapter from when they start fighting, we only see Orihime very briefly, and it's just where she's, crying out in worry after he's been knocked to the side. So, Santen Geshin appears, but there's no little thing, it's like, it was Orihime who did that, like a little side panel of her kind of like holding her hands out or anything like that.
That would take away from our dramatic Yuhabak sitting there, not moving, attacking poses.
You think he's like thinking about something else while this is going on before he speaks? Like, did I leave the... I don't know. No, I didn't. All seeing. Got it.
Where it's just like, have I had Wendy's ghost pepper fries already? I'd like to try them, but if I did have them and I don't remember, then that must mean they weren't very special.
And I deliberate... Well, let's see. If I don't remember doing it, then that means that I haven't done it because I see all. Unless they were so horrible that I blocked out the experience. Or so wonderful that I blocked out the experience so I could experience it again for the first time.
You know what? Wendy's is on my way home. I'll just stop by there anyway. I don't really know why I'm having this conversation. Oh, hey, I beat Ichigo.
Good job, me. All right, now where are my keys? Where did I leave my keys? Goddamn.
Oh, wow, I can fly. I can create Wendy's out of my mind.
No, wait, I still need I still need to drive. It's past 11 p.m. I need to go through the drive-thru, and they won't let me just stand outside looking all super and shit.
Oh, did I leave my coupon at home? You're right.
Anyhow, Ichigo tries to power through Yubak's black wave of energy. He is stopped cold of Yubak. It's really hard to tell exactly what happens because it seems as though he's slashing his way through these ribbons of dark energy, but that you stopped right in front of him. There's like this black band stopping his elbow from swinging. And Yubak, taunts him by saying that his mother died as she was supposed to. She gave birth to you and lived for me. What more could she want? There is no greater happiness. And then the energy tosses Ichigo away. And the thing that probably actually bothers me the most about this whole scene, and it's something that happens in Bleach fight scenes from time to time, is it's so hard to tell how Yubak's powers are directly interacting with Ichigo as he's trying to fight him. There's no establishing shots of the effects that they're having on Ichigo's body throughout this entire sequence. We see the waves of black energy approaching Ichigo, we see them being cut down, we see them surrounding him, and then we see them stop him, and then we see that they've tossed him away. But continuity of movement is never really established in this entire sequence, and that does really bug me. It's one of those things where you have to go back at several points in order to figure out what happened. Like, the first time I read through this chapter, I didn't realize Ichigo had been tossed away, because it's only shown in one tiny little panel crammed into the corner of one page. It's something that's always bugged me about Bleach's art style. It's one of the downsides to let's spend a whole full-page spread on this one moment kind of thing. And it is an effective full-page spread, I'll admit, because Yubak stands up and the massive black energy is pouring off him. You can't really tell where just his power ends and his body begins, and there are weird, disfigured eyes peeking out from random points in the cloak of darkness surrounding him. He looks really creepy and powerful, but just not an effective use of space through the rest of the chapter.
No, I agree. But it's an okay chapter.
Yeah, it's all right. It's just there are parts of it that really do bug me.
It's just, I guess, nice to see Yubaba and Ichigo doing things, as opposed to another like parade of chapters against some other opponent who just keeps getting back up.
Which presumably they're both going to do anyway.
Yeah. All right. Move
Fairy
on
Tail.
then. Fairy Tail, chapter 485, The First Dinner in 5 Days. I'm just going to skip over the beginning, because it's not honestly all that notable. Essentially, they're going with Brandish to go see August. Mest is like, I don't trust her. And I'm like, are you still part of this guild?
Are you still here?
You're still a thing?
I thought you died when they rescued Makarov.
It's like, no, I easily just teleported in and out. But then they make Happy really, really big so that they can walk faster. And then there's a scene with Kana and Mavis that only has context, I think, if you read the spin-off series about Mavis, which I haven't, so I just skipped right over these pages, because whatever.
I mean, there's a couple of things that I do that I think are notable. I honestly really like Brandish's little action in this chapter, because Happy notes, I can only carry one person at a time. Brandish is like, oh. And so he grows him really big so that he can carry all of them. It's like, that makes perfect sense. And then she goes, oh, let's ride on this big fluffy wuffy guy. And Lucy's like, oh, that's random for her. But it's like, okay, there's another character trait for Brandish. If she's gonna stick around, it's nice to know that they can do more with her than just bathe with me naked.
Yeah.
My mom died!
Watch me walk around in a bikini
and fur coat.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with Mavis and Kana and Zera, because in order to try and inspire Kana to kill me, it's just that way I'll be free. She's like, you remind me of my friend, blah, blah, blah. And she has an imagination sequence where she imagines Zera dressed like Kana and getting drunk. And then after she's told Kana, I like to think that if Zera had lived, she would have grown into a fine woman like you. And she imagines Zera acting like Kana, and she's like, actually, forget I just said that. I hope that doesn't happen.
Oh, wow. I see. This is why I guess eventually I need to read that spin-off. I thought that actually was what she was when she grew up. And I was like, so they're the exact same fucking person. Like, is that her daughter and they're just not stressing it now? Because that's the exact same personality. I guess that was her imagining. I guess her friend died or something.
She died.
It's fucking, it's Kingdom Hearts. I can't do it again, Nick. So we go up to the northern...
It's really, really harsh, because she's like trying to inspire her, and it's like, I like to imagine she would have grown to be like you. Actually, no, I don't.
She's like, oh, you're so irresponsible. You almost had to agree to a fuck that drunk guy when you lost a battle against him. So we go back to the north, and essentially Fairy Tail and everybody who was rescued are just kind of crushing through that army now. Sting has a moment where he's just like, I failed and I feel bad. I mean, I'm skipping over Clutch Froshin too, but I figure we can go back and address it individually.
That's not Sting. That's the other guy, isn't it?
No, Rogue's the
Rogue
one.
Right? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sting and Rogue. So Sting's the master of Fairy Tail, and he's upset because he's failed his group. So Yukino, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
All right.
That's right, Chris.
Cool.
It's okay. She's only had one notable scene before this.
Slaps Sting and is like, "Pull your shit together, god damn it!" And then immediately starts apologizing. Like, she has that moment where she's like, "Wake up, hero," and then immediately reverts back to, "Oh my god, I didn't hurt you, did I? I love you so much." Apparently, from what I've been told, these two are kind of like an item in the Fairy Tail spinoff about Sabretooth. So, I guess that's where a lot of this is kind of coming from.
It's one of those things where sometimes side characters need a bit more attention. So that if you try and pull an important moment with them, then there's enough context for it. If that was established in like a spin-off thing, that's fine. For people who don't read that, though, like us, it seems really feels as if it comes out of nowhere because aside from just Sting and Rogue, we don't really know very much about Sabretooth. Well, and Minerva. But Minerva was involved separately from them.
Minerva had an arc outside of Sabretooth's arc.
Right. Whereas Yukino was barely involved in Sabretooth's introduction. She, literally, the only thing I remember about her is that one joke released on it was like, oh no, there's another white-haired little sister character that makes me extraneous. And then the moment where she has lost in the tournament, so Giemma made her take off her clothes. Like, that's all I remember her for.
God, I've forgotten that. All I know is her older sister's another one of the forgettable stellar spirit mages that are out in the fairy tale world.
Right. Because they're, Serana.
Yeah, one of the Ratio 6. Anyway, Sting is like, thank you, I needed that. Let's go, and this is where we get our chapter title. He's like, let's go, Sabretooth. The tigers' bellies are still growing. This is going to be our first dinner in about 5 days. So, essentially, you just get to watch all of the various members of Sabretooth kick a little ass. And Blue Pegasus in a collection of scenes that just annoy me because I swear that guild is the most superfluous thing in this series.
I do really like the panel where people are like, we're going to get revenge for Ichiya! His death won't be in vain! And Levi pops in with the most random, demented comedic pose, and he's like, actually, he's still alive, guys!
I thought you were going to make it. I really like that scene where that one dude's like, I looked up your skirt and saw black underwear, and she's like, my underwear is usually much cuter!
Such a weird... I think that's, what's her face? The one model character?
This is... Usually the most forgettable characters are the Stellar Spirit Mages, because they all just kind of blend together. This is the one character even below them, because I think her only purpose in the series was to have a battle against Mirajane in the Grand Magic Tournament, and I don't think she did anything else. And it was related to them.
They did some sort of modeling contest?
I think they had... It was whoever lost had to pose nude in the magazine. And I think there was maybe a modeling aspect to the battle, but she literally, I don't think, has done a single other thing outside of that. But everyone else gets to kind of have their moment, and they cut away to Irene and her lackeys talking, and they're like, "Oh, everybody we capture is fighting. Well, should we intervene?" And she's like, "No, this'll be no trouble for Bradman and Arcade." Lars said, "Arcade." I'm going to call him Arcade.
Until corrected.
And then we see Sirio Florel from Game of Thrones Season 1, but without his sword. And then he dies.
What do we say to the God of Death? Oh shit, not yet.
Oh god, no, Bradman, please! Like, he just... It's weird they show him in this one panel. Like, it's so much designed for a...
He gets this big, fighting pose thing.
It's so much designed for a character who immediately just gets knocked out or killed.
And apparently his name is Bill.
Yeah, he's just like, bah. Well, that's not a Bill. That's way too much design for a Bill. But they all know it's the God of Death, run away. We see Bradman. Before he can do anything, he immediately gets impaled by a series of metal rods, and we see that it's like a Geo literally impaling him into a wall. And I'm trying to see. I guess this must be Gajiel thinking. He thinks back to when he essentially crucified Levi and the other members of Fairy Tail during the Phantom arc. And I think that line, will take your frustrations out on the enemy. I think that's a line he may have said back then or something like that. But he basically notes, like, how do you like being strung up? Because you just made me remember the worst part of my past. And it's actually a good line from him, because it was a pretty fucked up thing he did back then, and he's always kind of been trying to play redemption for it. So it's kind of nice that he saw what other people, what they just did with the whole crucifixion thing, and it still weighs on him. So it's nice seeing that. And then Bradman's not super defeated immediately. That would be kind of annoying. So he's just like, he who touches, he who dares to touch death will regret it soon. That's a chapter.
I'm trying to remember that scene a little bit better. Because I know he did that to people. I just don't remember who he did it to.
He did it to Levy, Jet, and Drow. Because they were like a 3-person group at the time.
Oh, right, because Levy had those 2 guys that hung out with her until she just started hanging out with Gajeel.
Yeah.
Talk about an upgrade.
But it was legitimately one of the more awkward parts of the series that, he humiliated them in a pretty heinous fashion, and then eventually started dating one of them, and you're like, I get it, time's gone, you've both grown, he's not the same person anymore, but it's nice to show, like, that still weighs on his mind, and he regrets it, so it's kind of, like, this chapter's meh, for the most part, but it's saved a lot by the fact that these, like, last 2 pages are kind of cool.
Well, and also, I mean, the action he takes against Bradman is freaking just summons all these iron pillars and shoves them through him like nails. And judging by Bradman's reaction, apparently being impaled and stuck to a tree hasn't really hurt him too badly. So. Well, I'm sure that their fight will be done in 2 chapters. So.
Yeah, well, we can't spend too much time on it. But that's fair, too.
Food Wars, 166 overwhelming. Last time, Erina and Hisako were called upon to judge the cooking contest between Tsukasa and Soma. We threw out a couple of ideas for how this could end, possibly in a tie. But Erina just flat out says Tsukasa wins.
Okay, better.
Call.
He was totes my goats better. The cover page, by the way, is American flag bikini girl. But she's no longer wearing an American flag bikini, so I think I have to actually learn her name, which I can't.
Okay, repeat after me. E. Ku. Me. Now say it all together.
American flag bikini girl.
Okay, good job.
Yeah, I got it.
No, she's pulling like a sort of a guile thing because she's got it's still American, Chris. Because she's wearing camo underwear. That'll totally prevent the enemy from seeing the area around her tits.
Yeah. Like if her breasts just pop out of a bush, not the rest of her, and an enemy walks by, she's still hidden. She's still incognito.
Well, she's got something like teacups. So that is entirely possible that
she could sneak up behind people. Essentially, she could just sneak up behind you, and in the last, for a moment, you're like, I think I heard something. You look behind you, and all you see are just the camouflage bikini, and you're like, nothing must be there. Because at the same time, you're a dude, so you're like, I know those are tits, but they're camouflage tits, so that's all I'm seeing, but I can't see anything at the same time. And then she just takes a blackjack to the back of your head, and she's won.
Oh, God. Anyhow, Erina declares that Tsukasa is the winner.
Yes.
And Tsukasa just turns to Soma and says, I'm pretty sure that you aren't going to have an issue with the decision because you probably realize how big the gap between us is. And even Hisako is thinking to herself, there is no question Tsukasa's dish was better. But she, feels regret. It's this means that we're basically going to force Yukihira to join Central. But immediately, Tsukasa says, "You're way too unpredictable to be of any use to me." That's what I got. That's the impression that I got when I tasted your dish. If you were my right-hand man, I might not be able to keep you fully under control. Now, if I brought you with me to Central, I think that the stress and anxiety of dealing with you would give me a heart attack.
No baller.
Which is one of the theories that I think we threw out. Tsukasa letting some off the hook. But he does it in a very Tsukasa way, which is being entirely selfish and worrying about the effect it would have on his own cooking instead. So I'm fine with this. And also, I do really like Soma's reaction to Tsukasa saying, we'll just, say that this, never happened. You don't have to actually follow up all the consequences. Besides, it was an informal contest, so whatever. And so it was like, no, I lost.
Yeah.
So I had. He's
It's,
just fully accepting the burden and being really hard on himself.
I understand the frustration some people have because it's annoying to bring up the contest and then have a conclusion and a definitive winner, but the consequences of it don't play into anything, especially when this is something that went on for the course of like a month essentially, and that mug is really distracting because of how cool it is. But essentially, it is certainly annoying, but as you said, it fits in with Tsukasa's character a lot. I mean, this is what we've grown to know about him. He's a very selfish person. The only reason he's doing this cooking and agreeing with the zombies' plan is because he's like, it helps me further my own personal goals. That's all I really care about. The only reason he wanted Soma as his right-hand man, because he's like, you're capable of keeping up with me. That's all I want. So when he's like, oh, you're really unorthodox, I don't think I want you anymore. It also makes sense because we know Tsukasa's a really big worrywart, and he gets easily overwhelmed and nervous and constantly making sure everything's right. So it fits in with him, but at the same time, we also get Soma saying, like, I don't, well, phew! He's not thinking, like, wow, I dodged that bullet. He's like, I lost. Let me be your right-hand man, even though I'd hate it. And essentially, everyone just comes to be like, look, he doesn't want it. You don't really want it. But you're going to be whiny and mopey about it for a while because you lost.
And I do really like the interaction of all four of the characters in the scene, because you've got Tsukasa, being dismissive and selfish. You've got Hisako being very pragmatic and looking at the big picture. Someone being prideful to a fault. And Erina, because she's very much the most neutral party in all of this, despite being probably the person who shouldn't be, she's kind of stepping back and just being a bit more analytical about things. So Hisako has this big argument with Soma, like, what are you doing? This means that you would have to go to Central. Is that what you want? And Soma's like, no, that would suck really bad. And she's like, then don't do it! But Erina is, questioning Tsukasa, and she says, were you just having mercy on him? And Tsukasa says, no, actually, that was quite the opposite of mercy. Because his cooking is solid, straightforward, and unwavering. Neither he nor it will ever bend, no matter what controls I put in place. And so I decided he was too dangerous to have close to me, and that's all. Bye! But he is also thinking privately to himself, but there's something very odd about this entire year's class. And then we jump forward several days as the shokugekis between Central and the rebellious students continue. Central still being very dominant across all the cooking halls. But we also get a few brief little moments to shine from Chris.
Megumi.
Okay, and?
American Pie Bikini Girl.
Okay.
And she's making what looks like nachos until I look closer, and that's lettuce.
That's not nachos at all.
I was like, ew, prawn nachos, that's gross. Also doesn't fit in with your beef theme.
Is that going to just be your thing with Ikui for the entire rest of the series? Just like make incorrect observations about everything she does?
I'm like, Nick, that dude really has big tits.
Nick, this girl really hates Soma. She must not like him at all. She would never want to hook up with him. But the four...
Nick, where's her Zompak toe?
Considering the fucking cleavers she carries around all the time. Anyhow, they're taking on the lower members of Central that were introduced along with Rentaro. And it looks like those four are basically just the punching bags now for Central. You can't just have the Council of 10 losing to these guys, but also you gotta have the good guys win occasionally. You gotta have the good guys win occasionally, but you can't have the main members of the NWO job to them, so that's why you put in Virgil.
Yeah.
And that's a reference that very few people are going to get in our audience. So, I do also like the little moment of like Soma in the crowd cheering on Megumi, but he's still upset because he lost to Tsukasa. He's just like, go Tadokoro.
Yay.
So yeah, victory for Megumi and Ikumi, and Soma congratulates them, and Ikumi is like, yeah, you were the one who told me to join the club, so I decided to do my best and stuff, and it's not like I want to kiss you or anything, She doesn't seem like to get enough focus to have that kind of interaction with Soma,
She's
you know what I mean?
an odd character because she was one of Soma's earliest opponents, and they were kind of developing her then, but she just kind of became the byproduct of Soma having a lot of rival characters, and a lot of them having, longer time because they were later on in the series, and that series tend to spend more time in particular arcs when that happens. So, she's always been consistently around, but she just hasn't developed a whole lot. This is easily the most notable thing she's done in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, this is like putting her on the level of Kurikiba, and Megumi for that matter. Yeah. It's like, the fact that they had Megumi win her match, it's like, oh, that's cool. She gets to stand out. That puts her on a pretty high level, which shows that she has come a long ways. But we also know way more about her. We know how she fits into the whole feud going on between Central and everybody else. And she is one of the more important characters in the series overall because, she's been around. Whereas Ikumi, like, she feels like one of those characters who should kind of get an occasional spotlight moment, like a Kurikiba or like a Hayama or Aldini or something like that, but she hasn't.
I think also part of it may play into the fact that earlier on in the series, there was a lot more of a tease that this could almost be a harem series, and she was meant to be one of the girls of that. But as time has gone on, it's not that sort of series anymore. So even though she still plays that role of being like the third girl, there's no real need for it because that's not the sort of series they're pushing at.
Like, I'm not saying like, oh, I wish that she would show up more and do more stuff because she's not one of my favorite characters in the series. I think that, I mean, it's cool that we have this very different looking character, but her character is very simple. She has a crush on Soma, and that's pretty much all there is to her at this point. I mean,
I like her just because she's the meat character. So anytime she makes a dish, except
that I can relate to. Except she made a steak.
Yeah, except those disgusting prawn nachos. I don't like those look one bit.
So now even that is fading away for you.
I like some nachos. I don't know if I like a nacho themed character.
It's one of those things where it's like there are all these different characters that I hope get a bit more of a spotlight so that we can have them show up more, especially in this all-out war that's going on. But she's not one of the ones that I really hope will stick around. It just is kind of one of those things where it's like if you want her to have these kind of moments, then she should probably be played up more consistently. That's all I'm saying. Then we cut to a conversation that Tsukasa is having with, oh god, I've forgotten his name. Azami, right. As Tsukasa is like, there's something really weird about all the first years in this class. And at the center of it all is Soma Yukihira. And Azami recalls what Rentaro told him about. It's like, these first-year classes so weird. So he thinks to himself, okay. Oh, anyway, steps have already been taken. Even should they continue to stand against us, I've prepared a way to separate them, crush them one by one. Our next field of battle lies outside of the Institute, with the start of the advancement exams. So, looks like we're kind of having a bit of stagiaire week type of thing, which this is really, that's really the only one we've really had in the time that we've been covering this series, where they have a big special exam. There was the festival that occurred, but that was more about the contest between Soma and Kuga. But I do sometimes forget whenever we get into more of the student versus student or whatever opponent situations that is something that's kind of been a regular part of the series. Is here's this big trial that all the students have to face, and there's a danger that a bunch of them are going to be eliminated. So it's something for all the good guys to have to work to overcome.
It'd be interesting too, especially if that notion of separating and crushing them one by one happens.
Mm-hmm. It looks like it's this, big ass temple on the mountain too. Because I think that they're implying
Ho-Ho.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they're implying that it's located just outside the institute. Because I think maybe those buildings down there are supposed to be Totsugi. I don't know. But I'll find out eventually. Whatever. It's a small detail. But all right, chapter. Mostly it's about the conclusion of the Tsukasa and Soma fight. So if you like the way that played out, you probably liked it. If you didn't like the way it played out, you probably hated this chapter. Let's move on then to My Hero Academia. Chapter 90. So, last time All Might confronted All for One in an attempt to rescue Bakugo. The chapter is titled Reach Out. And basically the shockwave of the two confronting each other causes this miniature explosion. It sends everybody else flying away. And All for One makes this brief comment about, it's about 5 kilometers from the bar to here, but you took a whole 30 seconds to arrive after I sent the Nomu, so I think you're kind of losing your edge. Just continuing the whole idea that All Might is slowly losing his powers, but is still super cool, is super strong.
It's a nice it's always that kind of fun, arrogant line that a villain can have in a superhero story where they basically make fun of the fact that this person has superpowers, but
right.
Like,
you took a whole 5 seconds to dispatch the guards that I sent after you. Yeah.
You're getting slow.
And All Might, of course, vows to take Bakugo back, and he says he's going to put All for One in prison. You and your little league of villains! And All for One extends his hand, and it starts, bulging really weirdly, and he just kind of shoots his hand towards All Might, and it sends him flying away, smashing through buildings and along the ground. And he explains what he just did by saying, I used air cannon plus spring-like limbs kinetically boosted by 4, and the strength enhanced by 3. It's a fun little combination, but I want to add in a few more power-up type quirks. Which I think is really cool. He is basically using unique combinations of the quirks that he has stolen to do things that not even the people he stole from could do.
Yeah. He basically made super compression cannons.
Mm-hmm. All for One instructs Tamura to run away and to take Bakugo with them, and he does this really creepy thing where these tendrils extend from his fingers, and they embed themselves into Kuragiri's, who is still unconscious, and he basically forces him to activate his quirk while he's still unconscious. So this portal appears, and he tells them to grab Bakugo and escape through the portal while he deals with All Might. Really cool and really creepy. So yeah.
And not only does he have a collection of powers, he can also hijack any one of his allies and force them to use their quirks as well.
Now my pages aren't loading. God damn it. Well, they start All for One and All Might continue to fight, and meanwhile the League of Villains tries to hold down Bakugo, who is obviously very much outnumbered and outmatched, but he can at least try and just dodge away from them. He doesn't have to win the fight. He just has to, keep trying and keep away from them. And while this is going on, of course, Deku is still, hiding with everybody else, and he wants to rescue Bakugo, but he just told him, you can't fight, so... Fuck. There he goes. All Might, of course, is still trying to reach Bakugo, but All for One is definitely holding him down. And so Deku, however, finally starts thinking about something, and he's like, okay, wait a minute. If there is an opening, we've got to take it. We've got to save Kacchan. So if we can rescue him, then All Might can go all out because he's holding back so that he doesn't hurt Bakugo. And he thinks of something, and he says to Ida's like, look, there's a way. We can still actually do this while avoiding combat. And we can do that, and we can then escape. And he quickly relates to them his plan. And basically, we're told what he's telling them essentially while they're executing it. So, but the first thing he says is the key to the plan being successful is Kirishima. And he points out, like, Bakugo is probably really, really bitter about needing to be rescued. He would probably feel disgraced about this. And he told me to stay away the last time that, I reached out to him. So if I'm the one who reaches out to him and says, come with us, we're going to save you, then he probably won't take it. But if you do it, then he probably will, because of the relationship that you have, where you are basically rivals who push each other forward, as opposed to him hating me.
Yeah.
So the plan basically is they use Todoroki's powers to make an ice ramp, and then both Deku and Ida use their enhancement speed abilities to dash up it, and then they use the ramp to fly up into the air while they're holding Kirishima between them. And then Kirishima just reaches out to Bakugo and, just says, hey, come on. And so, yeah, they do that. And Bakugo sees this because, they've just exploded through the air on an ice ramp. And he uses his explosion powers to launch himself into the air, and he snags Kirishima's hand while they're flying away. And it looks like the plan's a success so far, although we stop right at the moment that they grab hands, so of course something could still happen at this point.
It is a cool moment, though, because we're building that Class A group. I mean, Kirishima was a character who had gotten a little bit of focus, but not enough to give him a character. But here, it's like noted, none of the rest of us could do this, because he hates me, and he's not particularly fond of anyone else here. But you're someone he actually considers a friend, or at least like an honorable opponent. And it's kind of what Kirishima wanted from the very beginning, to go on this mission to rescue Bakugo, because he felt, guilty for not being able to do anything last time. So it's a cool, nice character moment for him. And I like the way Bakugo gets out to where he just starts exploding, and launching himself into the air. You can see a chain of explosions he uses.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that feels like an earned victory for the heroes.
Yeah. And it's a good moment for Deku, too, where he has this very kind of realistic understanding of the way things are, but he comes up with a plan that, basically follows the way that he hoped that it would. Mm-hmm. So it's nice that he got to have a moment where he got to look cool without exploding his arms.
It's good.
Yeah, like the chapter. Moving on to, I guess we could talk about Nisekoi for a little bit, because there was actually a moment in this that we actually talked about in the Q&A episode. Basically, everything is kind of heading towards the final confrontation, you could say. Raku talks with Shun in this chapter, and he's trying to figure out, I still don't know who between Onodera and Shirage I actually love, because I like them both. And so Shun gives him this little speech, which is, I've heard, that there's this one way to know who you're in love with. Imagine you see a rainbow, or you see a shooting star, or you discover this new cafe in your neighborhood, or or you see this sunset, or you discover new music, just a little thing that makes you feel happy, you discover it. Who's the first person you want to tell right away? Whose face is the first one that pops into your head when you think of that? You know, something that makes you feel happy or lucky. Whose face do you think of? And Raku thinks about this, and we don't see whose face he sees in his mind, but, you know, he has this moment of revelation, and then he's like, okay, yeah, I get it. And then at that moment, they get word on where Chitoge is from her mother, and so everyone basically heads to the place that Chitoge and Onodera and Raku and Marika met as kids, which is the Tenku Highland, and they're all going to meet up there. And it's not just the three of them, but also Sugumi and Marika are also going to meet there. And
fuck Yuzo or whatever her name is, you know.
I do like that. It's like the four women who might have the key to Raku's heart. Well, Yui's not there, so Sugumi's there instead.
She doesn't have a key, but like in theory.
That made me very happy because it's like, you know, my least favorite character being replaced by like my favorite character in the series. Well, probably second favorite. I think I like Ruri more. I also like the little moments where everyone learns about it because, of course, Shun tells Marika, and apparently he's like her inside man, informing her what's going on while she's away. And Sugumi, you know, Raku tells her where Chitoge is over the phone, and he's like, "Where are you?" "Oh, I was just I was looking everywhere for the mistress. So I was just coming back from the South Pole. She's not here." But there's also a moment at the beginning of the chapter before all that happens where basically Raku's mother wishes Chitoge luck, and she thinks to herself privately, you know, "I'm sorry I lied to you, but Raku actually told me 12 years ago about the promise he made, and it wouldn't be right for me to tell you because sometimes the truth destroys your dreams. If you still want to know the truth, you must find it yourself, even if it means getting hurt." Which pretty much says, like, he didn't make the promise with you. And as we all know, the promise you make with someone when you're 6 years old defines what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
I know it's not going to be the ending, but I think it'd be nothing funnier if the ending was like, "What was the promise you made, Raku?" He's like, "I promised some dude that I met when I was 5 that I'd marry him." And I go, "It turns out I'm gay as shit." And I don't know, I just needed to be back here in Poland to remember how gay I was. And anyway, I'm just going to go chug ham for the next 70 years. I got some catching up to do in credits, and that's it. I'm like, wow, I did not see this coming.
I also still don't know exactly why they insist on hiding Raku's mother's face for this. Have it like.
I guess it's that mystery. Like you're like something that even after, like the same thing the reason they never showed us Kakashi's face. Like here's just a mystery to consider from henceforward.
Or Hiruma's dad's face.
Yeah,
if you remember that.
Yeah, you just saw him show up at a stadium.
Like even it's weird because like it's not as if their identity would be someone we know. It's like we know who they are. We know that they're a new character that has never been seen before, and it's not like they're going to be related to some unexpected person. But their face just stays hidden. It just does.
Well, it's not, because Ginger Straw in the chat brought up Miss Bellum. Miss Bellum, never seen her face, was part of the joke, though.
That was a joke.
This is a character who's just been introduced. I legitimately think it's just something to let fans constantly question going forward, or, you know, something to consider going forward, which honestly kind of has a place in it. Like, once a series ends and you have nothing left to talk about because every question's answered, then sometimes it can be a little disappointing. But if you're like, I wonder if maybe she looked like this, or, you know, maybe she had this about her.
It's something that can make a character more memorable, honestly, is that sense of wondering about them. Like, it, you know, like a character, you know, you never see unmasked, but honestly, like the character whose face is never hidden, despite the fact that they're not hiding their face, it's just something that's hidden just from the audience, I think adds something to it. Mm-hmm. It's also one of those things where it's like, if you say, like, just have a character say, it's like, wow, Raku's mother is really beautiful, and you never see their face, you know, you filling in the gaps in your mind that's probably more beautiful than anything that could actually be drawn. Something like that. But I did really like this chapter. It was a really cool little speech by Shun, and I like the moment of Raku's realization. And I guess that, yeah, we're definitely almost at the ending here. So, but yeah, let's move on to there was no One Piece this week.
No, which I believe sends us on to headbutting crotchy jumpstart thingy.
Takuan Batsu's Daily Demon Diary.
Oh, this is another series that apparently lists its chapters by page.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because, well, it makes sense because it's, diary, which, I mean, I know that Black Clover makes sense because they have magical tomes. Tomes have pages too, but whatever. Basically, how do I sum this up? So our main characters are a guy, Takuro Tsukumo, who is nicknamed Takuan because he at one point said that the takuan, which is a pickled radish that comes with steak, is something that he really likes. The idea is that he takes pleasures in the simple things in life. He doesn't care for big standout moments. He just everyday life. He really treasures little things.
Because you can't have a steak all the time, but you can have a takuan with every meal.
And he meets. She's got. It's such a weird name that even though every time I see it, he meets Batsu, who is the devil's daughter. She's basically Satan's daughter. I know it's Enma's daughter, but that's essentially Satan's daughter. And basically, there's power vacuum in hell because Enma's not there anymore, and so basically she's trying to maintain order while he is gone. And she's got this very strong sense of justice, which is illustrated by when she accidentally headbutts Takuan in the dick, like she just kind of falls into it. She stands over him with her really uncomfortably short skirt and is like, "You should headbutt me in the groin too."
Demands
like,
it.
Yeah, like justice must be served. If you can't, so she says, like, for every crime a punishment, for every crotch a crotch, which is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard.
It's really like that quote about I should start up a Twitter account that's just called Manga Without Context, and those those are the shit that you post on it.
Oh god. But Takuan kind of sarcastically agrees to help her, but because he says that, she says, if you break a promise with an Enma, then that's unforgivable. So she's going to heavily punish him if he breaks the promise, even though he wasn't very sincere when he made it. Because either he's breaking the promise or he lied to her. Both ways, not good. And her power is basically to summon a hammer and fight with it. She can do various things with the hammer. Basically, what's happening in this chapter is that there is this demon who has possessed someone, and the guy has this, like, acidic saliva. They call the police, and a police chief shows up, and skipping to the end, eventually it turns out he's the killer.
The only other character of note that they have in this chapter?
Basically, yeah, aside from the victims. You can tell right away that Batsu is going to be used for a lot of weird fetishes. There's a lot of upskirt stuff with her.
That's the thing that's creepy for me with this series, because it's not the worst sort of fan service I've seen in the series. Like, it never actually shows you what's up the skirt, which is, I guess, sort of a nice thing. But it's just the fact that she looks like she has the body type of like a 14-year-old. I don't have the same, like, instinctive creep out reflex because I just don't associate an age with a demon so much. But just the fact that physically she looks that young is definitely, like, a little squicky, I guess, to follow all the way through.
Right. So Takuan is actually the first to confront the police chief, and there's honestly, like, what probably makes this chapter for me is the police chief transforms into his demonic frog-like form and immediately attacks him. And we get this backstory from Takuan, who basically, throughout the chapter, it's been established he has this contact with the police because his mother was a detective. And so Takuan gets attacked. He's like speared through like almost the heart. And as you know, Sasajima, the police chief, mocks him and he says, "You're right. I won't grow up to be like my mom. I know that. I'm not like her. I don't have her sense of justice, but I've got the same thing that you have. This ugly malice." And he transforms into a demonic form, which reveals that he's also possessed by a demon, an ogre. And he starts throwing down with Sasajima. And he explains, "I love living my calm everyday life, going to school, joking around with friends, doing club activities, even pickling my Takuan. For me, every boring day is precious. Maybe I should just give in, and it'll probably help me take out jerks like you who corrupt that existence." And basically, it's explained this, like, because his mother died so early in his life, and it was basically, he didn't say goodbye to her. One of those moments where a tragedy strikes, and he didn't say to her one last time, "I love you," or something like that. He didn't get to do that, and so because of that, that's why he treasures everyday things so much, is because in an instant, everything you take for granted can be taken away from you. And I think that's a very strong way of establishing that kind of a character. You start off with this very seemingly boring thing, and then you give this very dramatic reason for it. So I liked that.
I found it funny when she grew into a giant. She's like, "Don't look up my skirt." And he doesn't try to. He just accidentally does. So she balances out by pulling down his pants and looking at his underwear. I was like, that's mildly amusing.
Yeah, it's new.
It's a unique thing. I haven't seen it before.
I really don't get Batsu, honestly. It's like, everything must be in balance. Why? Because. As opposed to, why do you like such boring things? Because my mother died. Oh. Why do you like everything being in balance? Because demons.
She's gonna find out her dad got killed by a scale. But saved by a scale. And then hit by a truck. So he's dead. But she's like, the scale killed and saved my father. So balance is important.
Anyhow, everything ends up, Batsu ends up taking on her super demon form. She has a magical girl transformation, basically, which involves her showing a lot more skin than she did before. And then, after she's defeated Sasajima, she eats him. She, swallows him whole, and as he is disappearing says, "As you journey to hell, you will experience the same pain as your victims." And his body starts to be dissolved by acid. And then it's like, well, that's the end of that scene. He's got to be dissolved by acid a few times and then go to hell. Pleasant. But, the chapter ends with them basically agreeing to work together because Batsu basically forces him into it. He's like, she slaps this, control collar on him. But their goals also do match up. Takuan wants to protect people's everyday lives, and Batsu wants to maintain order. So they're working together. I liked parts of this chapter a lot. It did make me look forward to seeing more of it and seeing where this could go. I'm not super into it entirely, especially because Batsu is such a weird character in so many ways. But I do see a lot of potential in this. And I do think that this could turn out really well. But also, it could suck a lot. It's all over the place for me.
I think I would probably enjoyed it more if we could have gotten to the character development stuff instead of spending so long with just the joke about headbutting her in the crotch. Because it's like a brick joke. It comes back again later. No, for us to continue, you must headbutt me in the crotch.
Right.
Alright, like, that stuff, I get it. Like, it's a sense of humor that maybe I'm just not attuned to, but it's... hopefully, Chapter 2 will be more of the good stuff, less of the...
It's a regular length for a, pilot chapter. It's 60 pages long, but it feels a lot longer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dialogue in it.
And a premise that isn't entirely unique, so it's harder to not almost think about other series like this while you're going through it. Like, immediately my mind was like, oh, it's a lot like Neuro.
Or for that matter, it's a lot like Devilly Man.
Yeah.
Two characters with clashing personalities doing demonic buddy cop stuff.
Or fuck, Samon the Summoner.
Yeah. So...
Oh my god, Nick, they're all the same!
For something like that, it's very reliant on, how it does the little things. And there are some little things that are done well, and then there are Headbutt Me in the Crotch, so... Let's move on to Toriko. Gourmet 370, the strongest god. Froze and Acacia come across Toriko's group.
That's basically it. She buries fucking Midora in the ground.
I'm kind of surprised that Froze did that, or Joey did that, rather, because I know that Midora is trapped in a little container, but it's like, wouldn't you think he could be set free, so you want to keep that with you?
Well, I guess she's like, if I hide it in the ground. I guess she's like, if I get into a battle, someone could take it off me. Like, it's better just to hide it and then teleport where everybody else is.
Brunch and Aimaru...
Coco could have a stealing type poison.
Yeah.
So, you gotta watch out. You gotta watch out for that.
Brunch and Aimaru leave because we can't have Brunch ever do anything, I guess. So we just like, okay, we'll go somewhere else. Like, go through the back channel with Brunch's super speed. They observe that basically all the world's creatures are being drawn towards God because the ultimate flavor is calling to them. But they're like, oh, but it's a contradiction because, the ultimate flavor is going to be the thing that consumes them all. They'll become the ultimate flavor. Everybody in Toriko's group reacts to God. We have this big 2-page thing where, they're actually talking with their inner demons.
Did they do this? Have they done this? Like, I know Toriko's talked to his
they've
team before, but...
I don't remember, the other three ever doing it, honestly.
I know we've seen their demons, but not actually, talk to them.
Right. It's like suddenly they all have a Yami Yugi on their shoulder telling them, you're right, we can eat God.
I like to think it's like a Garfield situation where they're all thinking these things, because they don't ever respond to them in this. So I like to think that all their demons are just commenting on things around them, and maybe they'll just react facially, like they maybe know, but it's not clear.
Oh god. I hope he tastes like lasagna. Toriko starts attacking God, and Sunny is like, you can't do that, Toriko! Komatsu's in there! And Toriko's like, well then, why are you working together with me? It's a good question. They never really answer it. None of the attacks work, basically.
Yeah.
Zebra tries to use his voice cutter technique, and it does nothing to God's body. And Coco's like, I know. I'll use poison.
Guys, I might blow you away. I think I have a poison that can help in this situation. And that's what everyone in Toriko would be like, where's this dude with the poison? I just use my voice to cut things. That doesn't even physically make sense in any fashion. This motherfucker, the most inventive thing he could do was like, what about another poison?
I'll combine it with germs.
Yeah. What if I
poison?
What if I throw a bunch of poisons at once? I mean, it's the same poison, but just in multiple doses.
But honestly, I bring that up though because instead of just he's immune to the poisons, God actually dodges. This fucking skyscraper ass thing just kind of
fucking actor images everybody.
It ate the moon. It's the size of the moon, and it goes. How do you miss that? Midoriya is also getting in there, and they're talking with what's his name, Otake, and Midoriya's like, "You think you can prepare him?" And Otake's like, "Well, I'll try."
He's like, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. Theoretically, why not?
Gigi gives this big thing about how it's like, oh, gourmet cells are born in outer space, and their flavors are constantly expanding like stars. And strong creatures such as the Eight Kings are also born through inflation. God is increasing flavor along with his strength and difficulty to prepare. And in the long history of these past 10 billion years, without a doubt, this God is the strongest. Now, we don't have time for very long explanations on how to prepare God, so I'll be brief. What you need to do... Ah!
I don't know why I find these moments always inherently funny. Like, it just makes me cut back to that Simpsons line, like, oh God, what do? All right, Homer, if you ever find yourself in a bad situation, the one thing to remember is, and it just cuts to Flanders, it's like I'm wearing nothing at all. Nothing at all. Stupid, sexy Flanders.
Stupid, scary Neo. And Gigi is just like frozen in fear. And Toriko and everyone calls out to him, they go, "Oh, Gigi!" And he says to himself, "All right, that's my name." And he has this intense flashback of when he and Kaka and Chi-Chi all met Ichiryu, and he gave them their names. And that was one of the reasons why they were able to awaken from being simply desires to actually having a sense of self, was because they had names and it gave them that sense. And that was the reason why we adore Ichiryu more than anything. We even thought of partnering up with him. But now, all that I can think of on the brink of death, I can't think about that, and so they establish, on the brink of death, what flashed through his mind was not a memory of linking arms with Ichiryu, but rather that he had to impart to everyone how to prepare God. And instead he just gets eaten.
Well, I think he does. We see that his hand is like the last thing to get sucked in, so
maybe he threw something.
He might make a sacrifice or make some sort of sign that recognizes it. There's someone does something like this in JoJo, but I don't want to spoil it for you. Otherwise, I'd reference it.
But yeah, it's probably the scariest that Neo has actually probably, I think, looked, just being Neo, just this face coming out of nowhere and devouring him.
I think I'd like it more if there wasn't still a pronounced, like, flaming nose. Like, I think it'd look scary if it was just the face, but something that having, like, a big, stupid nose, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that nose sucks. But Acacia takes form afterwards shortly, and he says this really awesome line, which is, humans say there's always tomorrow, and the sun will always rise, but it's not going to come forever. I wonder if that's what it feels like to be consumed by Neo. It's so creepy and so fucking sadistic.
Bleak and nihilistic, goddamn.
Yeah, it's like you're going, that sense of hope for the future that you have, it just disappears forever as you're being eaten. I wonder if that's what it's like. And Joey chimes in, is like, I think that's the perfect analogy, is they appear, and now Toriko's group are suddenly confronted by both of our villains, and also God's still there, looming over all of them.
Yeah.
Shit's going down, So, a pretty alright chapter, I would say, overall. Did have that really cool line by Acacia, which gives it a thumbs up in my book, just from that. Alright, World Trigger, chapter 143, the one where Osamu does stuff. Osamu Mikamo, part 14, very appropriate for him. Last time Kakizaki had the attempted double takedown with Yuma, after he was stabbed through the chest, he shot him full of bullets, and Kakizaki's immediately forced to bail out. The announcers declare that Kuga managed to protect his heart. You see a very small shield in front of him, but he's still got a big gaping hole in his side, and he's leaking Tryon. So Yuma uses a scorpion to plug the hole. Like, he winds a scorpion inside his body to just plug the gap. And they're like, holy shit, he
Never
just
thought of
vanished
that.
himself. They do establish, though, it's like, I mean, he is still very critically wounded, but he's just stopping the Tryon from getting out while he's doing it.
And he can't attack while he's doing this because
Right.
that's the scorpion being used.
Right. So, I do think this is very. And I was like, all right, I like that, clever use of that, and I wonder if we're going to see other competitors use that idea in the future too, stealing that technique. But I do like that I was like, it's not like he just, he's fine. He's critically wounded, and so that does put him in a bad situation. So we get a bit of a few establishing scenes where it's like, okay, remember this is what these guys are up to, and now Taria is on her own completely, and she's trying to figure out what she's going to do in order to approach Chika, and then we cut over to Katori's squad as they're still dealing with Osamu, and they're like, oh god, Kakizaki's down, that means Kuga's coming this way, so we've got to take out Mikuma before they can regroup. So Katori's like, hey Rokuro, aren't you supposed to be higher ranked than Four Eyes? Why don't you take him out? Just being such a dick. But their operator chimes in and says, okay, well, Taria is on the move for their sniper, so that means we're safe from her. So this is our chance. So Yuta and Rokuro, you guys, half stealth, get behind Mikumo, while Katori takes the front and distracts him. And, just pay attention to the wires, get around behind him, and we'll just surround him and take him down. We do get cut away briefly to Taria, who is still dodging Chika's bullets while gradually approaching her. And after she takes cover, she just thinks to herself, I just need to be able to dodge one more shot and then I can reach her. We don't see how that's resolved, which I'll explain what I think is going to happen when we get to the end of this. But Usami warns... is it Usami? That's not her name, is it? Did I get that wrong? I never remember her name.
The operator?
Yeah, the operator.
I don't fucking know. I don't even know Tamakoma 2's operator's name.
That's what I meant.
Oh.
It is Usami. I got it.
Okay, cool.
Shiori. Yeah.
That's how much I didn't know Tamakoma's 2 operator's name. You were saying it to me, and I was like,
She warns Osamu that what's going on as he's getting flanked, and suddenly Katori calls out to him and says, "Hey, I heard you guys wanted to make the away team, and they say that your brother or your friend or whatever got kidnapped. But do you seriously believe you can actually make that A rank when you got your asses handed to you by Ninomiya? Do you really think, it's to protect those who are precious to me, or if I try my best, my dream will come true?" And Osamu pauses for a second, then he says, "I don't know what you're getting at, but I'm only trying to join the away team because that is what I believe I must do." And Katori is like, "You piss me off," because everything pisses her off, I guess.
He has this follow-up line afterwards, too, where he's like, "And when the whole world's telling you no, it's your job to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say, no, you move." He says other captain...
God, that was a terrible fucking line.
He has a lot of Captain
That
America.
is a stupid goddamn line. I know that I am Captain America, and I stand for America and democracy. But if I think I'm right, then the gays can't get married.
I love it only because now people are showing that with that scene of Falcon in the car.
I haven't seen.
Oh, you haven't seen? Okay, I'm
gonna go see it tomorrow.
It's in Civil War. The line is in Civil War, but not Captain America saying it. And there's a scene later on that
does it mean something different in a different context?
Yeah, it's said by someone else and not regarding the Civil War conflict whatsoever.
Okay. Anyhow, Rokuro and other guy pop out to try and take down Osamu. He deflects their blows by repositioning his ray gust, and a red wire pops up, and he stumbles backwards over another one. And Rokuro's like, "Oh!
God damn it!"
And Osamu uses his thruster, dashes in, slashes downward with his sword. Rakura only barely manages to shield himself, and then Osamu declares asteroid, and planted bullets along the ground shoot the fuck out of him.
He basically traps the guy by attacking with the thruster, making the guy shield the only area he can in front of him, dodge that, and then making him immobile, so he just gets turned into fucking Swiss cheese by that.
And Osamu gets a takedown.
So he planned that out from, like, he knew that position would come up at some point.
Other guy is, shouting out towards Rakuro, but he's like, no, stay away, support Yoko. As Yuma is closing in, he's got a bagworm on as he's coming at her from above. And they start to fight, and Katori is like, oh, he's wounded, so he's going to bail out soon. I've got to take him down right away so that we get the point instead of Kakizaki's squad. She pulls out a pistol, and you would just cut her hand off with it.
Yeah, because she hesitates. She's thinking like, ooh, but I could finish him and get the point.
Her ally runs in to try and protect her. He fights briefly with Yuma. Their swords clash. But then more bullets fly in while he's distracted, and Osamu takes him down too. He's forced to bail out. And so now it's just down to Katori and Tsuruya against all of Tamakoma 2. And we get a brief establishing moment with the commentators where Tamakoma has taken all the points so far. Katori's in a corner. Her operator is apologizing to her. She's like, I'm sorry, my analysis just wasn't good enough. And meanwhile, she's staring down both Osamu and Yuma, and she's like, God, you two pissed me off. This was a really good chapter. It was so nice to see how goddamn well Tamakoma's plan played out. They're not completely out of the woods yet. They've got a completely dominating lead. I think it's mathematic. It is mathematically.
They can't mathematically lose at this point.
They can, actually. If either Tsuruya or Katori take out all 4 other people left in the match, then they'll get 4 points and then the point for surviving.
Yeah.
It's possible, but it's not going to happen. Tamakoma might not get the clean sweep, but I'm pretty damn sure they're going to win.
I would not be shocked if they actually get the clean sweep. Here's my theory for how things are going to happen with the next chapter. And this is a lot of idealistic Osamu fanboyism here, so take that grain of salt first.
He launches a spider.
Yeah.
Grappling hook goes into her head, and her head explodes.
Well, a lot of people are thinking that Katori is going to get like a flashback next week to kind of explain some things, because we got some context to her having a past and maybe even her also having ambitions about joining an away team. I don't think that's going to happen. I think next chapter she's going to get really angry and she's going to charge in, and Osamu just like point blank nukes her because she's fucking crippled, super crippled, and has no way to really do anything. So he just takes her out, and then we see what's her name up there dodges another sniper bolt, and she's like, finally, I got all the way up to you. You can't beat me at close range. You're too afraid to shoot people. And that's when she's like, oh, that motherfucker planted traps up here too. And she just gets blasted like a buckshot of asteroids. And Osamu from down at the bottom's just like, yeah, oh yeah, he blows his finger. He's like, and it's like, finish!
And he was like, Osamu, why did you do that? Well, that's like, we'll watch some Hollywood movies.
Yeah, you're gonna have some cool one-liners coming up after this.
We'll join Enidora for a showing one of these days.
I like this chapter a lot. I like. I mean, this is essentially the payoff to a lot of what we've gotten with Osamu. It's not the ultimate payoff because these aren't top tier opponents. You know, the people he just took out are.
They've got
losers, essentially.
They've got really big team dynamic problems.
Yeah. And they're considered the weak ones of their team, too. Like, this is a bottom-ranked team, even though it supposedly has a great ace on it. Like, you know, it's not like he took out Ninamiya with that or something like that.
Right.
But it's still a pretty huge moment, not just because he had all the planning and foresight to take her, to take out that one guy. But just the fact that he took advantage of that one situation to score the points for that second kill as well. And I don't think this is the first time Osamu scored points. I thought he scored some in one of the other matches as well. Just like 1 point, essentially in the same sort of situation.
Well, because they've been making a big deal that Yuma's the only one on their team that can score points.
But I thought he scored points only in one match, but only because Yuma sort of distracted them.
I'm not sure.
It's one of the issues with this series not having a lot of popularity is I can't just go to like a wiki and look that up. But yeah, I thought he got 1 point in like the first match essentially. But I can't remember. Regardless, though, this is him getting 2 points on his own, and a lot of thought went into it.
Well, I mean, one he didn't get on his own, but the fact, he took on an entire team and got a point while going 3-on-1 against them. Mm-hmm. That's pretty badass.
That's pretty sweet.
I am more curious to see what happens with Tsuruya at this point than with Katori, because they really built up, her approaching Chika, and then she has that moment where she says, I just need to dodge one more bullet, and then I can reach her and take her down. So it's really playing at the idea, which is something is going to happen, whether she actually dodges the shot or she doesn't. It's a bunch of different things, like maybe Chika will actually manage to shoot her, maybe there is a trap slate up there, which seems like the most likely scenario for me. But it seems like it's not going to be a matter of Tsuruya took out Chika, and that was just it. So yeah,
it's a good chapter.
That's World Trigger. Good chapter. And now it is time to name our favorites for this week. My Hero Academia ran away with the popularity in our chat room.
Actually, World Trigger was really close to it as well.
I just see 40%, and I see,
yeah,
but it was basically like you liked My Hero Academia or you liked World Trigger. That was
if you took the votes that One Piece got for some reason, and if you gave it to World Trigger, then World Trigger would have won.
Just to give context, One Piece did not run this week. It got infinitely more than Black Clover and Fairy Tail.
Normally I disclude those series. I just made a mistake and included it. 3 people still voted for One Piece.
My favorite this week was My Hero Academia. I thought it was just a really cool moment there. It really, I think, paid off the moment of the conflict between, Ida and Deku that had been set up from the previous chapter. Or rather, had been established in the previous chapter, but had been set up since they went on the mission. And finding that compromise in order to save Bakugo in a big moment where it's like, oh yeah, we'll establish this moment for Kirishima too. It was really good. I liked it. Also, All For One being fucking badass, so.
I'll just do it at one. My chapter of the week is World Trigger, and my character of the week was Osamu. I think it was a great chapter for both of them. It was a really entertaining chapter. It was nice to see things kind of paying off. And it was just a really enjoyable chapter all around.
And Osamu was my MVP as well. Clearly the highlight of that chapter. It was so nice to have payoff for him getting points. It was also really fun to see Annalisa freaking out in joy on Twitter as the chapter came out.
She's had to sit on this for a little bit, right? Like she's worked on this chapter presumably for like 2 weeks, so she knew this was coming. Well, I have no idea what the timetable is for putting chapters.
Having her celebratory banner was like best boy or something like that.
Best boy.
But he got the 2 takedowns. He has that one cool little moment of determination where Katori is just spewing hatred at him. He's just like, this is just something I believe I've got to do, and then he fucking wrecks her team. It was really nice after such a long wait to have him just get this flat out badass moment from a character who has been fun to follow so far, but before this did not have that. This is our badass secondary protagonist right here. So, good stuff. So yeah, those 2 chapters very fun. Yeah, overall, really like this week in manga, I think. Looking forward to seeing where a lot of this stuff goes next week. But for now, we are going to sign off. So everyone, thank you for listening to Weekly Manga Recap / watching it, our stream, or on our YouTube. If you want more, you can listen to us in many different locations. We're on YouTube, we're on podbean.com, and we're on iTunes. If you do listen to us on iTunes, be sure to leave a comment or a rating so that we can beat those asshole woodworkers. I'm sure the woodworkers are actually very nice.
I would say we're labeling them as assholes now, despite the fact that, like, look, just because we like woodworking and decide to share that passion with fellow woodworkers doesn't make us assholes. Again? Yeah, they're like, hey, maybe when you get up to top 50, you can start talking to the big boys. We're like, well, we'll we'll brag on the people at the bottom of the rankings then. Unless it's the week where we're not in the rankings at all, then we say nothing.
You can also follow us on Twitter. He's at RoloT. I'm at YRoller of Time. And we're also at WMR Podcast for official podcast news. We let you guys know when we start the stream and stuff. Normally it's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays here on hitbox.tv/RoloT. But sometimes things change, things come up. Maybe we have a problem with the stream and have to use a different location. Maybe we have a schedule problem, we have to do it at a different day. We will keep you updated through social media, however, if you follow us. So just follow along with those, and you'll be able to listen to the show live. Also, be sure to send us criticism, ask us questions, and make suggestions for future manga for us to read. You can send all that stuff to weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. And last but not least, special thanks to a good number of people, our Patreon supporters, first and foremost, because your support allows us to create all sorts of bonus content for you guys to enjoy. We just did our Q&A episode, which is free for everyone to listen to.
Yep, that should be out, like, I think tomorrow. Probably I'll put it out.
I had some fun times during doing that. And went on just as many tangents as we normally do, pretty much. Steve Manders, our title artist. You can check out his work on DeviantArt, where he goes by Neurotic Fanboy. On Tumblr, he's got a couple of Tumblrs. I'm not sure what all of them are called. I just remember one is Zydrop Boost, because that's really easy.
Tumblr, yeah.
And he has his own Patreon, patreon.com/SteveMan, if you want to support him. And finally, of course, Infamous...
I just need to note, before we get too far away from Patreon, we did get a couple new patrons as well, so I want to give a special thanks to Daniel Paul Bateman, and he asked me to call him Jacob, but he also wanted me to try to pronounce his actual name, so thank you to Yap Rutin, Hiap Rutin, Jap Rutin, Jajop Rutin. Thank you, Jacob.
Jap Rutin. I've seen that name too. So.
I want to pronounce it in my mind like the Swedish chef talks. So like, Yap Rutin. But I don't think he's Swedish, so I don't even think I'm thinking in the right starting lane.
And of course, finally, special thanks to Infamous Planet for doing all the stuff that he has done to help on our podcast, including making this framework you see around us. Very soon we're going to have a Pokemon adventure, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see all you guys next week.
Yeah, we're going to have it real soon. I actually, because apparently they don't sell the Pokemon manga digitally anymore, so I picked up the physical volumes, got like a collector set for them. Mm-hmm. And I was reading through the first volume, and I don't know why, but like I was only like 3 chapters into it, and I'm just not an observant person, I guess. And one of my observations is like, man, it's really satisfying to have a Pokemon series that doesn't have the main character have a Pikachu. I don't know why I thought that, because like fucking Pikachu's like right in the front, like right on the box. Every goddamn volume has a Pikachu on it. The first volume has Pikachu on the front and the back, and I don't know why, but I was still like, oh, there's one. Because that moment was like...
It's not his starter, though.
It's not his starter. He doesn't get into, like... It's literally like the chapter after I had that thought to myself was like, boom, I caught a Pikachu. It was like, for a solid...
He basically catches it the way all of us did, in Viridian Forest.
Yeah, but for a brief moment, I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet. There's no Oh, of course there's a Pikachu. Like, it's everywhere. How did I even not notice this?
You can't have Pokemon without having Pikachu be one of the most prevalent Pokemon in the manga.
Do all
until you get to Gen 2.
Yeah,
Well,
I was gonna be like,
even in Gen 2, the main character gets a Pichu. Okay, Gen 3, you can stop having Pikachus.
Well, does he get a plus or a minus?
They might.
Damn it. Fucking hate
Okay,
these.
Gen 4, you get away from the Pikachu.
Do they get an Emolga? Or not an Emolga, that's Gen 5. What's... Pachirisu?
I don't remember. Because I haven't gotten all the way through Gen 4.
Fucking... All these goddamn people with their fucking
Why
Pikachu.
do they all have to have electric rodents?
They put one in every fucking gen. There's always a fucking Pikachu.
It's gonna be like we get to like Gen 8, and it's gonna be like Zaferit.
It's not far off. Like, it's... The last gen, it was just another electric rat. It was just not Pikachu, and it had a fairy type to it. It's like, okay.
Fucking adorable electric rodents.
Goddamn shitheads.
With their adorable sparky pouches.